Vanessa Reed had grown used to being underestimated. In Los Angeles, where fortunes were flaunted on billboards and social media feeds, she was an anomaly. A woman who built a thriving textile tech company and chose to keep nearly all of it quiet. Her name wasn't on magazine covers or startup panels. She didn't appear at red carpet fundraisers or make grand entrances through the lobby of the peninsula. Her wealth lived behind the soft hum of design studios, behind patents and private contracts, behind a professional life she kept separate from the world she had married into. For 3 years, she had sat at tables where the Hale family spoke around her, not to her. Their comments were never loud enough to accuse, never sharp enough to provoke, but always precise enough to remind her she didn't belong. Lila Hale would tilt her head and smile before offering critiques disguised as concern. "Some women just aren't built for the demands of our social calendar," she often said, glancing at Vanessa's minimal jewelry or practical shoes. Other times it must be exhausting to live modestly in this city," spoken with a warmth so polished it gleamed like a knife. Brandon Hale, her husband, performed politeness the way an actor performed lines, perfectly, but without soul. In public, he rested a hand lightly on her back, opened doors, said, "My wife," with a practiced affection that photographed well. In private, he spoke to her as if she were background noise, present but irrelevant. He didn't ask about her day. He didn't ask about her company. He didn't even know where her main office was located. What mattered to him was proximity to his family's power, and Vanessa, quiet, understated, unassuming, never fit into the image he wanted to craft. The upcoming gathering at the Hale Mansion in Beverly Hills was another reminder of that. Brandon had mentioned it casually over breakfast, in the same tone he might use for a haircut appointment. "Family event this weekend," he said. "You should come. Just don't overdress. It's not your kind of crowd." He didn't look at her when he said it. He rarely did. Vanessa had nodded, not because she was eager, but because something inside her had finally settled into a clear, unwavering stillness. She would go. She would watch. She would give them exactly what they expected, a woman with modest means, simple taste, and no real presence. And then she would see what truth revealed itself when she wasn't performing at all. On the afternoon of the gathering, Vanessa stood in front of her open closet. She ignored the tailored dresses and structured pieces she usually wore to board meetings. Instead, she chose a plain beige blouse, soft from years of washing, and a simple skirt she'd kept out of habit more than style. No jewelry except a thin band on her finger, no makeup beyond a bit of lip balm. She tied her hair into a low ponytail, the most forgettable version of herself she could assemble. The mirror reflected a woman who could easily disappear in a crowded room, and Vanessa felt no sting in the realization. Instead, there was only quiet resolve, a decision made without heat or anger, only certainty. If the Hale family believed she held no value, then for one evening she would show them exactly that. She would let them reveal who they were when they thought she was no one. When Brandon arrived to pick her up, he barely glanced at her outfit. A small, relieved exhale escaped him, subtle but not subtle enough to miss. Vanessa simply walked past him, stepped into the car, and let the door close with a soft finality. Whatever happened at the Hale Mansion tonight, she would face it unguarded, and in that unguarded space, the truth, raw and quiet, would finally surface. The Hale family estate sat behind tall iron gates, polished to a dark mirror sheen, with palms lining the long drive like silent guards. As Brandon pulled up to the entrance, 2 uniformed security officers stepped forward. They hardly glanced at Brandon before focusing on Vanessa as if she were the variable that required verification. Their eyes swept over her plain blouse, modest skirt, and worn flats, an unspoken critique delivered without a single word. "Name?" one of them asked, though he already held a tablet that clearly displayed the guest list. "Vanessa Reed," she answered calmly. A beat, a raised brow, a slight hesitation, as if her presence didn't match what the device told him. "Right," the guard finally said, stepping aside. "Proceed." The coldness of it wasn't new. It was the same quiet judgment she had encountered dozens of times within this family's orbit. And yet, as the gate opened and the car rolled forward onto the pristine driveway, she felt the familiar heaviness settle deep inside her chest. The sensation was slow and cold, like water rising around her ankles. When Brandon parked, he got out quickly, circling the car to her side with a tight expression. The moment Vanessa stepped out, he took a half second to look her up and down, an instinctive, reflexive scan. His face tightened further. "Vanessa," he whispered sharply, "did you really have to wear that?" She closed the door gently, letting his disappointment hang in the warm Beverly Hills air. "This is what I chose," she said. Her tone was neutral, unprovocative. "Well," he muttered, "try not to draw attention." Inside the foyer, light spilled from crystal chandeliers, reflecting off polished marble floors. Laughter and chatter drifted from deeper within the mansion. The place radiated wealth in a way that wasn't warm. It was curated, cold, and intentional. And then Lila Hale appeared. She walked toward Vanessa with her usual elegance, perfectly coiffed hair, diamond earrings catching the light, a smile shaped more by calculation than emotion. "Vanessa," she said, voice bright as polished glass, "you made it." The smile hovered for a moment before Lila's eyes made their inevitable sweep downward, landing on Vanessa's outfit. Her expression didn't change, but something sharpened behind her gaze. "Oh," Lila murmured, "you chose something simple tonight. How refreshing." Vanessa felt the comment land exactly where it was meant to. Soft words with a hard blade. Before she could respond, Lila looped her arm through Brandon's. "Brandon, darling, let's get you situated. Guests are already asking about you. And Vanessa, sweetheart, don't feel pressured. Not everyone has to dress for the theme." "There was a theme?" Vanessa asked quietly. Lila smiled wider, too wide, for most of us. As they walked deeper into the main hall, Vanessa could feel eyes turning toward her. Not curious, not admiring, just assessing. Women in evening gowns and tailored couture glanced at her, then exchanged small, coded smirks with one another. Men glanced too, with polite indifference, as though she were a misplaced piece of furniture. Brandon leaned toward her. "Look, Vanessa, maybe you should change. There's a guest closet upstairs. You'd fit in better. People don't understand your style." He used a low tone, but not low enough to hide the impatience beneath it. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The humiliation washed over her in slow, suffocating waves. No different from what she had endured countless times before. Only tonight it cut deeper because she had chosen to walk into it unarmored. Before the moment could stretch further, a staff member announced loudly from across the hall, "Dinner will be served in 5 minutes." A murmur rippled through the crowd as guests began drifting toward the dining room. Vanessa followed quietly, each step echoing with the knowledge that the worst was still ahead. The dining room resembled a set designed for a Hollywood fundraiser, long, immaculate, and arranged with an unmistakable hierarchy. A single table stretched nearly the full length of the room, its surface adorned with gold-trimmed china and towering floral arrangements that seemed to exist solely to remind guests of their own insignificance. Place cards, written in calligraphy, dictated where everyone belonged. Vanessa found hers at the very end, far from the center, far from the conversation, far from Brandon. She took her seat quietly while the rest of the guests flowed in like a choreographed production. Executives from rival studios, real estate magnates, minor celebrities, faces she recognized from billboards and magazine covers, all slid into chairs closer to the head of the table, where Brandon and his parents sat with bright, camera-ready smiles. Conversation began immediately, and Vanessa quickly realized she wasn't part of any of it. Men discussed new studio acquisitions, throwing around numbers like they were talking about baseball scores. Someone joked about a director being unmanageable but profitable. Women whispered about a celebrity divorce that had exploded on social media that morning. Others dissected investment opportunities in Palm Springs or argued over which plastic surgeon was doing the most tasteful work lately. No one looked down the table toward her, not even accidentally. Food arrived in elegant portions, tiny plated compositions that tasted expensive. Vanessa ate slowly, listening, feeling the way their voices washed over her like static. She could have been invisible. She could have been a piece of furniture. It made no difference to anyone in the room. About halfway through the meal, a woman near the center of the table commented loudly, "Reed. Reed. Is that the name? I thought Brandon married someone from San Diego or something. What does she do again?" A few heads turned, not toward Vanessa, but toward Brandon, as if he might explain the oddity sitting at his table. Brandon cleared his throat. "She's between jobs right now." Vanessa felt something inside her tighten. She hadn't planned to say anything tonight, but the quiet ache she'd been carrying suddenly sharpened into clarity. The whole point of coming here unadorned, stripped of every symbol of her true life, was to see them clearly. And she did. But maybe it was time to see how far their cruelty would go. She rose to her feet. The table fell into a soft hush, just enough attention to register that someone unexpected had broken script. "I actually wanted to say something," Vanessa began, her voice calm but steady. "It's true. I lost my job recently, and I don't have any savings left." It was a lie, but it served its purpose. Brandon blinked up at her as if she'd just confessed to a crime. Then, loudly, unmistakably, he laughed. Not the polite, social laugh he used during photo ops. A real laugh, sharp, cruel, delighted. "Oh, come on," he said, patting the table. "Vanessa, what are you doing? Don't be dramatic." He turned to the guests. "She's exaggerating. She worries about everything." Laughter rippled outward from him, moving like a wave through the table. A few people exchanged amused glances. Someone whispered, "That explains the outfit." Another murmured, "Beverly Hills isn't kind to charity cases." Vanessa stood still, absorbing every word, every smirk. Lila finally lifted her wine glass and offered a thin smile toward the far end of the table. "It's predictable, really," she said. "Some women simply aren't equipped to navigate the demands of a real family. It shows." The room buzzed with quiet approval. Not one person stepped in. Not one person looked uncomfortable. They were entertained. Vanessa looked at Brandon. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't conflicted. He was enjoying this, enjoying her humiliation, enjoying the spotlight it brought him, enjoying the narrative he'd woven around her for so long, that she was lesser, that she was small, that she was lucky to be tolerated at all. That moment settled into Vanessa with a finality she hadn't expected. She sank back into her chair, not defeated, but suddenly, painfully awake. The truth was no longer rising around her. It had finally reached her heart. The room hadn't fully regained its rhythm after Vanessa sat down again. Her confession, fabricated but believable, had stirred a thin layer of amusement that still lingered like smoke above the table. But as dessert plates were cleared, Brandon rose from his seat with a sudden burst of confidence, tapping his fork against a glass. "Everyone," he said loudly, "I have an announcement." The shift in attention was immediate. Conversations went silent. Chairs straightened. Even Lila placed her napkin neatly beside her plate, her face lighting up with a knowing anticipation, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. Vanessa watched him from the far end, a dull ache settling into her stomach. She knew that tone, the self-satisfied swell in his voice. He was preparing a performance. Brandon's smile widened. "Many of you have asked about what's next for the Hale family, about legacy, about the future. Tonight, I want to introduce someone very special." He lifted his hand and gestured toward the doorway. A young woman stepped into the dining room. She couldn't have been more than 22. Blonde hair styled in soft curls, a shimmering designer dress that caught the light at every angle, and a confident smile that showed she was used to admiration. But the detail that drew every eye immediately was the curve of her belly. Full, unmistakable, nearing the second trimester. The room reacted instantly. Gasps, excited murmurs, lifted eyebrows. Every head turned toward her like she was the guest of honor at a gala. Brandon beamed. Everyone, this is Skylar Madison. Skylar placed a hand on her stomach, then walked to Brandon's side with slow, practiced grace. He kissed her lightly on the forehead, then looked around the room with pride. "She's carrying my son." The words landed like a physical blow. Vanessa felt her breath catch. For a second, the entire room blurred. The chandelier lights above her seemed to fragment into white shards, sharp and disorienting. She blinked once, twice, trying to steady herself, but nothing steadied. Around her, applause erupted. Full, enthusiastic, genuine applause. The kind of applause that had never once been directed at her. "Oh, Brandon," one woman exclaimed. "Finally!" "A boy for the Hale name," another man added. Incredible news. Someone else laughed. "Well, that explains the glow." Skylar blushed prettily, leaning her head against Brandon's shoulder, as if she had been rehearsing the moment for weeks. Brandon raised his glass. "Skylar has been by my side in ways Vanessa hasn't been able to. She understands me. She understands the expectations of this family. She's ready to give the Hales what we need." The implication was clear, deliberate, cruel. Vanessa felt every eye slide toward her, some with pity, most with thinly concealed triumph, and a few with the satisfaction of seeing a storyline resolved exactly as they believed it should be. Lila finally stood, lifting her champagne glass high. "To Skylar," she declared, her voice ringing through the room, "a woman truly suited to carry our legacy, and to Vanessa." She paused, offering a smile edged with dismissal. "We hope you will step aside gracefully. It's what's best for everyone." More applause, more approval, more celebration around a betrayal delivered so casually it felt rehearsed. Vanessa sat frozen at the end of the table, her hands resting quietly in her lap. The numbness that had followed her earlier humiliation began shifting into something deeper, heavier. It wasn't shock, it wasn't confusion. It was the slow collapse of the world she thought she understood. Brandon had never been distant. He had been preparing her exit, and the entire Hale family had been waiting for it. As Skylar slid into the seat beside him, into the place Vanessa had occupied for years, Vanessa realized something with chilling clarity. Brandon didn't just enjoy her humiliation. He needed it to justify replacing her. And now, he finally had. The drive back to the Hollywood Hills felt unreal, as if Vanessa were moving through a world made of glass. Her hands were steady on the steering wheel, but her heartbeat wasn't. The city lights blurred past her windows. Billboards, palm silhouettes, the glow of Sunset Boulevard, but none of it settled into her vision. Everything felt distant, muted, as though she were watching her own life through a thick pane of ice. When she pulled into the driveway of the home she shared with Brandon, modern architecture, steel beams cutting sharply into the sky, she immediately sensed something was wrong. The front door was locked. Not just locked, replaced. The keypad she used every day now blinked red, unresponsive to her code. She tried again. Red. A cold realization crawled up her spine. Vanessa stepped back from the door just as two movers rounded the corner, pushing a dolly stacked with boxes. Her boxes. Tape marked with sharp black letters. V. Reed Office. V. Reed Closet. V. Reed Personal. Her breath caught. "What are you doing?" she asked. Neither man answered. They just continued rolling her life toward the curb. Then Brandon appeared behind them. Hands in his pockets, wearing the same relaxed confidence he'd worn at the dinner table. Lila followed, dressed impeccably as always, her expression bright with a serenity that only arrived when someone else was suffering. "Vanessa," Brandon said smoothly, "you're early. We thought you'd stay at the estate longer." "What is going on?" she demanded. "Why are my things outside?" Lila sighed, as if the question inconvenienced her. "It's simple, dear. Brandon needs the house to be a stable environment for Skylar and the baby. It's best you move on quickly." Skylar. The baby. Their baby. The words sliced into her again. Brandon stepped closer, holding a manila folder. "There's paperwork you need to sign," he said. "Then this will all go much smoother." Vanessa swallowed hard. "Paperwork for what?" "For the debts you owe me," Brandon replied. She blinked. "Debts?" He opened the folder and held out several pages, legal-looking, filled with dense financial language and forged signatures. "You borrowed a significant amount of money from me over the last few years. Business expenses, personal expenses, travel. It adds up to quite a bit." "That's a lie," she whispered. "I never borrowed anything from you." Brandon shrugged. "My attorney disagrees." Lila folded her hands neatly. "Brandon has been more than generous supporting you. It's only fair you acknowledge that formally." Vanessa stared at the documents. Fabricated transactions, fake loan agreements, interest schedules. A trap. Clean, calculated, rehearsed. "And this," Brandon added, pulling out one more sheet, "is a confidentiality agreement. Sign it, and I'll forgive the debt." She scanned the page. A non-disclosure agreement. If she signed, she would never be able to speak about the Hale family, the affair, the humiliation, or the eviction. Her silence, in exchange for freedom from a debt that didn't exist. "And if I don't sign?" she asked. Brandon's smile returned, the same cold smile he wore when the dinner guests laughed at her. "Then I'll sue you for the amount owed, and trust me, I have the resources to win." The air pressed in on her. Vanessa's pulse pounded. She could almost feel the walls of the home closing behind her, sealing her out forever. "No," she said quietly, "I'm not signing anything." Lila clucked her tongue, as if disappointed in a rebellious child. "Brandon, darling, let's not drag this out. She's made her choice." The movers pushed past Vanessa, carrying the last of her boxes to the curb. Brandon reached into his pocket, pulled out her car keys, and dropped them into her hand without meeting her eyes. "You should go," he said. "Skylar needs rest." And with that, he stepped back into the house, closing the door firmly behind him. The lock clicked. The sound echoed. Vanessa stood on the driveway alone, surrounded by packed boxes and cold night air. Everything she thought was her life scattered at her feet. For the first time that evening, she let the truth pierce through her numbness. She wasn't going home. She no longer had one. By dawn, Vanessa had barely slept. She lay awake in a small Echo Park motel room, the only place she could afford on short notice, listening to cars pass on the street below. Every breath felt shallow, measured, as if her body were bracing for another blow she couldn't name yet. But she knew one thing. She had to protect what remained of her financial life, her savings, her investments, the company she built. She arrived at the bank the moment it opened. The lobby smelled of citrus cleaner and stale coffee, an odd contrast to the tightening dread in her stomach. Vanessa approached the counter quickly, gripping her ID. "I need to access my accounts," she said, "all of them." The teller, a young woman with neat braids, typed Vanessa's name into the system. Her expression changed almost immediately, first confusion, then discomfort, then something close to alarm. "Ms. Reed," she said carefully, "your accounts are restricted." Vanessa's heart thudded. "Restricted how?" The teller lowered her voice. "Frozen, by court order." For a moment, Vanessa simply stared at her, unable to process the words. A court order, on her accounts, her own money. "Who issued the request?" she finally asked. The teller's fingers hovered above the screen before she answered. Brandon Hale and Dana Fox. Dana, her CFO, her longest-serving executive, someone she had trusted with confidential budgets, mergers, and payroll. But the teller wasn't finished. The claim filed says you're experiencing psychological instability and attempting to withdraw large sums to flee the state. She winced as she read it aloud. I'm so sorry, ma'am. Noise flooded Vanessa's ears, a roaring, crashing wave of disbelief, instability, flee the state. Dana had built an entire narrative around her, and Brandon had backed it with the Hale family's influence. I need copies of the documents, Vanessa said, her voice shaking. All of them. I can't legally print them, the teller answered, but you can request them through your attorney. My attorney? Vanessa murmured. She didn't have access to one. She didn't even have access to her own money to hire one. The realization hit with a deeper, sharper pain than anything at the mansion. They weren't satisfied with humiliating her. They were erasing her. Vanessa left the bank and drove straight to her company headquarters in downtown Los Angeles, a glass tower that caught the morning sun like a blade. She had spent 10 years building this place, 10 years turning a small textile tech prototype into a national brand, 10 years employing hundreds of people. Security guards greeted every executive with professional warmth, but not her. As Vanessa approached the turnstiles, 2 guards stepped forward, blocking her path. Ms. Reed, you don't have clearance to enter. She blinked. I'm the founder. One guard shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, we were instructed not to let you in. Instructed by who? She demanded. Before either guard could answer, a familiar voice echoed from behind the glass reception desk. By me. Dana Fox stepped into view, dressed in a tailored navy suit, holding a tablet like a badge of authority. Her expression was carefully composed, but her eyes carried a thin, unmistakable triumph. Vanessa, Dana said, approaching her with false concern. You shouldn't be here. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. You froze my accounts. I did what I needed to do to protect the company, Dana replied calmly. After your episode last night, the board had serious concerns. What episode? Vanessa asked, stunned. Dana turned the tablet around. A video was playing. Vanessa standing at the Hale family dinner table, declaring she'd lost her job and had no savings left. A lie she'd crafted, a lie they were now using to destroy her. Brandon sent this to us, Dana said. The board voted early this morning. You're being suspended indefinitely, pending a mental health evaluation. Vanessa's breath stilled. You can't do this, she whispered. It's already done. Dana nodded to security. Escort her out. 2 guards took Vanessa gently but firmly by the arms. She didn't fight. She couldn't. Her limbs felt weightless, disconnected from her body. As they guided her toward the doors, employees paused at their desks or in the lobby, watching with wide, confused eyes. Not one approached her. Not one spoke up. Outside, sunlight hit her face with blinding force as the doors locked behind her. She stood on the sidewalk, frozen accounts, frozen career, frozen identity, realizing with crushing clarity that she had lost not only her home, but the empire she had built from nothing. And she had lost it to the people she trusted most. Vanessa checked into a cheap hotel in Koreatown, one of those places where the hallway carpet smelled faintly of bleach and old air conditioning units rattled through the night. The room was small, dim, and barely clean, but it was quiet, anonymous, forgettable. That was what she needed now. She sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped tightly around herself. The events of the past 24 hours played in her mind like a cruel film loop. The dinner humiliation, Skylar's pregnancy announcement, the forged debt, the frozen accounts, the company she founded turned against her. Her phone buzzed with notifications she ignored, emails she couldn't open, messages she couldn't bear to read, news alerts she knew were tied to Brandon's narrative spreading further. Vanessa curled forward, burying her face in her hands. She had lost everything. In a moment of desperation, she opened a forum thread discussing the Hale family, one she had read quietly for years. People speculated about Brandon's business deals, Skylar's sudden appearance, and the Hale empire's perfect public image. Without thinking, without caution, Vanessa typed a furious, anonymous comment. Brandon Hale is a fraud who steals from everyone he claims to love. The whole family is built on lies. She hit post. The moment it uploaded, a sharp wave of regret surged through her. She tossed the phone onto the bed as if it had burned her fingers. Too late. Her anonymity wouldn't last long. Not in a family like the Hales. Hours later, a loud knock startled her. Vanessa froze. Another knock, harder this time. "Vanessa, open the door!" She recognized the voice instantly. Harper Hale, Brandon's younger sister, sharp-tongued, loyal to the family name, and someone who had never hidden her dislike of Vanessa. Vanessa opened the door cautiously. Harper pushed inside without waiting for an invitation, eyes blazing. "Do you have any idea what kind of mess you just created? The comment you posted is everywhere. Brandon is losing his mind. Lila is already planning a press statement." Vanessa's voice cracked. "I didn't mean, save it," Harper snapped. "I came here to tell you to stop before you make everything worse." But as Harper took in the small, bleak hotel room, the thin blankets, the defeated posture, the exhaustion in Vanessa's eyes, her anger shifted. Something in her expression softened, even if she tried to fight it. "What happened to you?" Harper asked quietly. Vanessa swallowed. Then she told her everything: the forged loan, the NDA threat, the frozen accounts, Dana's betrayal, being dragged out of her own company. Harper listened in stunned silence. Slowly, her arms uncrossed. Her breath grew unsteady. "Brandon did all that?" Harper whispered. "With Mom?" Vanessa nodded. Harper sank onto the bed, disbelief washing across her features. For a long moment, she said nothing, processing the magnitude of what she'd just heard. Then her face tightened with something darker, recognition. "Vanessa, he's not just doing this to you." Harper leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Brandon has been stealing from the family company for years, millions. He uses fake shell accounts. He manipulated Dad before he passed, and now he's doing it again." Vanessa's pulse quickened. "Why are you telling me this?" Harper reached into her bag and pulled out a thick, rubber-banded folder. "Because I found proof, and I need someone who's not afraid to use it." Vanessa stared at the documents. Harper held the folder out. "Help me take him down," she said quietly. "You and we're on the same side now." For the first time in days, Vanessa felt something flicker inside her. Not hope, not yet, but a beginning. The days that followed unfolded like a covert operation. Vanessa and Harper worked in a cramped Koreatown hotel room. Papers spread across the bed, financial spreadsheets open on laptops, old email threads pulled from cloud backups Harper still had access to. The air smelled constantly of cheap takeout and high anxiety. Harper dug into the Hale family servers with a fluency that shocked Vanessa. "Dad trusted me with access before he passed," Harper murmured as she typed. "Brandon never bothered to notice." They compiled everything: wire transfers with mismatched signatures, shell company invoices tied to Brandon's personal expenses, forged loan contracts bearing Vanessa's falsified authorization, audio files, recordings Harper had secretly kept, where Brandon bragged about restructuring family assets without board approval. Every piece tightened the noose. Vanessa watched the pile of evidence grow, each document another reminder of how deeply she had been betrayed. But each piece also strengthened something inside her, something quiet, sharp, and steady. One night, Harper dropped a folder onto the table. "This is the smoking gun," she said. Inside were emails between Brandon and Dana Fox, planning the freeze of Vanessa's accounts and her removal from the company. Dana had even referred to Vanessa as the liability. Vanessa swallowed hard. They planned it all. They did, Harper answered, and now we're going to show everyone exactly who they are. But there was a problem. Morgan Hale, the Hale patriarch, founder of Hale Construction, the family's core empire, a man who valued legacy above all else, and whose word could either bury the truth or bring it crashing down. Brandon had manipulated him, too, feeding him stories about Vanessa's instability and Skylar's importance to the future of the Hale name. Harper paced the room. If we don't get Morgan on our side, everything falls apart. The board won't move. The media won't care. Brandon will spin it. So how do we reach him? Vanessa asked. Harper stopped pacing. The Hale Foundation Charity Gala, she said. Next week, at the Dolby Theater. Dad always makes a speech. Everyone important will be there. Brandon, Dana, Mom, all of them. The plan formed with chilling precision. They wouldn't confront Brandon privately. They would reveal everything in public, where the Hales couldn't hide behind lawyers or security or curated statements. Harper looked at Vanessa carefully. You need to be ready to face all of them. And you need to look like the woman they tried to erase. Vanessa exhaled shakily. Meaning? Harper grabbed her car keys. Come on. The makeover wasn't about vanity. It was about reclamation. Harper took Vanessa to a boutique in West Hollywood, known for dressing studio executives and A-list producers. For the first time in weeks, Vanessa saw herself under soft lighting, surrounded by silk, tailored blazers, clean lines, power. Harper insisted on it all. A fitted black gown, a sleek blazer for the reveal, heels that added an inch of authority, professional hair and makeup that brought back the sharp confidence Vanessa once carried effortlessly. When Vanessa looked in the mirror afterward, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Strong, composed, unbreakable. Harper stepped behind her, meeting her eyes in the reflection. You were never the problem, she said quietly. They were just terrified of a woman smarter than all of them. Vanessa let out a slow breath. The fear was still there, cold, gripping, unavoidable. But beneath it, something else pulsed. Purpose. The gala would be the most terrifying moment of her life, but it would also be the moment she stopped running and started fighting. The Dolby Theater shimmered under hundreds of spotlights, its red carpet filling with studio heads, politicians, celebrities, and the donors who kept the Hale Foundation at the top of every philanthropic list in Los Angeles. Paparazzi flashes lit the air like electric sparks, cutting across gowns and tuxedos in rapid bursts. Vanessa stayed nowhere near the entrance. Harper led her through a narrow alley behind the building, where staff members smoked on break and delivery trucks unloaded crates of champagne. Vanessa's heart pounded beneath the fitted black gown Harper had bought her, but her steps stayed steady. This way, Harper whispered, tapping her badge at the staff door. We're ghosts until we reach Dad's lounge. Vanessa inhaled sharply and crossed the threshold. Inside, the backstage hallway buzzed with sound techs, stage managers, and catering staff. No one questioned the two women as they slipped past dressing rooms and down a dim corridor. Harper knew every turn. This gala had been part of her life since childhood. The security outside would never let you through the main entrance, Harper murmured. They're already briefed on Brandon's lies about you, but Dad's private lounge is upstairs. Once we're there, no one can stop us. They climbed a set of narrow metal stairs to a private floor. A single guard stood outside a mahogany door. Harper, he greeted respectfully, your father's inside. And I need to speak with him privately, Harper said. It's urgent. The guard hesitated only a second before opening the door. Morgan Hale sat in a deep leather chair, reviewing note cards for his speech. Age had etched fine lines into his face, but his posture remained as commanding as ever. Shoulders straight, presence heavy. The room smelled faintly of oak and old money. He looked up slowly. Harper. His eyes moved to Vanessa. Why is she here? Harper didn't waste time. Because Brandon lied to us, to all of us, and you need to see the truth before you walk onto that stage. Morgan's gaze sharpened. Explain. Harper placed the thick folder on the table in front of him. Start reading. Vanessa watched silently as Morgan opened the folder. Each page he turned stripped more of the color from his face. Wire transfers to shell companies, fake invoices, Dana's financial authorizations, emails plotting Vanessa's downfall, audio clips of Brandon bragging about manipulating family assets. Morgan's jaw tightened. This cannot be real. It is, Harper said. I verified every document myself. Vanessa stepped forward. Your son froze my accounts, forged debts in my name, erased me from my own company, and tried to destroy my reputation by claiming I was unstable. Morgan's eyes met hers, searching, measuring. Why come to me now? Because you're the only one he still fears, Vanessa said softly, and the only person with the power to stop him. Silence thickened in the room. Then Morgan exhaled slowly, deeply, a sound of betrayal. Bring Brandon here, he told the guard. Minutes later, Brandon burst through the door, face flushed with anger. Dad, what is this about? I'm in the middle of preparing for... Morgan held up a hand. Sit. Brandon froze. The command was unmistakable. He sat. Morgan pushed the folder toward him. Explain this. Brandon's eyes skimmed the first page, then darted to Harper. What did you tell him? These documents are fake. Vanessa's manipulating. Enough, Morgan snapped. Brandon flinched. This is all fabricated, Brandon insisted, voice rising. She's lying because she's jealous of Skylar, because she can't handle... Brandon, Morgan said, low and dangerous. I built this family's name from nothing. I know what a lie looks like, and I know what a guilty man looks like. Brandon's breath hitched, his confidence cracked. You stole from the company, Morgan continued. You falsified board documents. You weaponized mental health accusations against your own wife. You conspired with a CFO to remove the founder of her own business, and you did all of it for money. Brandon's face twisted. Dad, I can fix this. No, Morgan growled. You cannot. Dana Fox was summoned next, escorted in by 2 guards. Her bravado evaporated the moment Morgan demanded explanations. Her answers contradicted Brandon's within seconds, unraveling their alliance completely. Morgan stood, voice ringing through the room like a verdict. Effective immediately, you are stripped of all authority within Hale Construction and the Hale Foundation. You will return every stolen asset, and you will answer for your crimes. Dad, please. Brandon tried again, but Morgan turned to the security team. Remove them, both of them. The guards seized Brandon first. He struggled, protesting loudly, his voice cracking under panic. Dana followed, trembling as she was escorted out. Harper opened the door to the hallway, and dozens of high-profile guests stood outside, drawn by the commotion. Studio heads, politicians, donors, reporters. They watched Brandon Hale dragged through the corridor, shouting, pleading, undone. Cameras captured everything. Dana stumbled after him, face pale under the harsh lights. The whispers started instantly. Embezzlement. Fraud. Is that Brandon Hale? Oh my God, they're finished. Vanessa stood behind Harper, still, silent, steady. The humiliation Brandon had served her in front of others had returned to him tenfold, not by her rage, but by his own actions. And this time, the world was watching. The fallout from the gala spread through Los Angeles faster than any headline the Hale Foundation had ever produced. Before the night even ended, clips of Brandon being dragged through the Dolby Theater hallway were already circulating on social media, accompanied by whispers, then statements, then full-blown investigative reports. By morning, every major outlet had picked up the story, and Vanessa's world, shattered, stripped, violated, slowly began to piece itself back together. The first breakthrough came with a call from the board of Reed Textile Innovations. Without Brandon's influence and Dana's manipulation, the company's directors reviewed the evidence Harper provided and voted unanimously to reinstate Vanessa as CEO and controlling shareholder. The suspension was overturned. The forged documents were invalidated. Dana's financial misconduct, documented in her own emails, was undeniable. Vanessa stepped back into the downtown headquarters 3 days later. Security greeted her with respect. Employees whispered her name, not with confusion or pity, but with relief. She didn't make a speech. She didn't demand apologies. She simply walked through the glass doors, took the elevator to the top floor, and reclaimed the office that had always been hers. Her presence alone was enough. Within the week, formal investigations were launched. Brandon was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and falsification of corporate filings, crimes that carried real consequences. Dana faced civil suits from both the company and several board members she had misled. Her reputation collapsed overnight. She resigned from every professional network she belonged to. Her name, once synonymous with innovation, turned into a cautionary tale in the business world. As for Skylar, she vanished from public view entirely. The glamorous posts and carefully curated photos disappeared from her social media. Rumors circulated that she had left Los Angeles, overwhelmed by the scandal she never expected would explode so dramatically. Vanessa didn't seek details. She no longer needed to know. Harper, too, emerged changed. For the first time in her life, she wasn't trapped beneath the Hale family's shadow, no longer forced to play the loyal daughter, the silent observer, or the reluctant accomplice. She moved out of Beverly Hills, sold her shares in the family foundation, and cut ties with the people who had taught her to stay quiet in the face of cruelty. One afternoon, she stopped by Vanessa's office with 2 coffees in hand. "You look lighter," Vanessa said softly. "I am," Harper replied. "Dad's rebuilding the foundation the right way this time. Clean slate, no Brandon, no Dana, no lies." "And you?" Vanessa asked. "I get to choose my own life now," Harper said, something they never allowed before. They shared a quiet understanding. 2 women pulled into a storm neither of them created, now standing on the other side of it with new clarity and unexpected solidarity. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa chose not to pursue revenge beyond the justice that was already unfolding. She didn't give interviews, even though countless media outlets begged for her story. She didn't post triumphantly on social platforms. She didn't expose every detail of her suffering. Instead, she rebuilt. Not loudly, not dramatically, but carefully, tenderly, piece by piece. She rented a small, sunlit home in Los Feliz, tucked behind blooming jacaranda trees. She spent mornings walking through Griffith Park, breathing in the quiet she had gone so long without. She returned to designing again, sketching fabrics, testing textures, meeting with new hires who saw her not as a scandal, but as a leader worth following. On one particularly calm evening, Vanessa sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city fade into dusk. The sky glowed soft pink, the kind of color that made the world feel gentle for a moment. Her life was not what it had been, but it was honest. It was hers. She had not reclaimed her world through fury or spectacle. She had reclaimed it by choosing clarity over chaos, truth over performance, and dignity over revenge. And as the first stars appeared above Los Angeles, Vanessa Reed realized something she had never allowed herself to believe before. She wasn't broken. She was free.